Hi students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mbide, and in today's session, we are going to learn about the active voice and the passive voice. We are going to learn how to convert a sentence from the active voice to the passive voice and vice versa. We are also going to see how to determine if a sentence is in the active voice, that is like the features of a sentence in the active voice, features of a sentence in the passive voice. This is something that was introduced to you in Form 1, so this will be more of a recap and revision. So before we proceed, we can have a look at those two sentences. These will be our base examples throughout this session. They're going to guide us as we navigate both the active voice and the passive voice. So the first sentence is, Kamau ate the banana. And the second sentence, the banana was eaten by Kamau. So just have them at the back of your mind. We are going to use them throughout this session. So when we want to say that somebody has done something, or somebody has done an action, or something has done an action to either another person or another thing, we use an active verb and we say that that sentence is in the active voice. So in a sentence where the subject has performed an action to the object, we say that that sentence is in the active voice. So before we proceed, let us define what is a subject, what is an action, what is an object, and then we can proceed to the active voice. Now, remember the sentence we read in the first slide? We are going to use it here. The sentence was, Kamau ate the banana. We are going to use this sentence to define what is a subject, what is a verb, what is an object. So, Kamau ate the banana. So, we are going to start with the action or the verb, which is eating. Ate. Ate is the action, okay? It is the verb. So who performed this action? It is Kamau. Kamau is the one who did the eating. What was affected by the eating? It is the banana. So the banana is the object. So the subject is the doer of the action. The verb is the action. And the object is the thing or the person that is affected by the action. I hope you have understood that, and I hope that that is clear. So let us have a look at some sentences that are in the active voice. And for each of these sentences, we are going to identify what is the subject, what is the verb, and what is the object. So the first sentence, Eric kicked the ball. If you want to easily identify the subject, the verb, and the object, start by identifying the verb. Remember, we have said that the verb is the action. So the action in this sentence is kicked. So who is the doer of this action? Who did the kicking? Eric. So Eric is the subject. Kicked is the verb. And then what was kicked? The ball. So the ball is the object. Mary cooked breakfast. We start by identifying the action, which is cooked. The doer of the action is Mary. So Mary is the subject. Cooked is the verb. And what was cooked? Breakfast. Breakfast is the object. Wanjiro spotted a lion. We start by identifying the action, which is spotted. Who did the spotting? Wanjiro. So Wanjiro is the subject. And what was spotted? A lion. So a lion is the object. And lastly, the dog ate the meat. What is the action here? Ate. Who did the eating? The dog. And what was eaten? The meat. So the dog is the subject, ate is the verb, the meat is the object. So if you want to easily identify the subject, the verb, and the object, start by first identifying the verb or the action. That will guide you to then identify who is the doer of the action and who has been affected by the action. If you also notice, in these sentences, we have started with the subject and then the verb and then the object. So in the active voice, we start with the subject, the verb, and then the object. So that's it for the active voice. Let us now proceed to the passive voice. So we have said that in the active voice, we are reporting what the subject has done to the action. Now, in the passive voice, when we want to report what has happened to the object, that's when we use the passive voice. And the passive voice, as you're going to see some examples in the sentences, you will realize that we now add an auxiliary verb and still have the main verb. It is important to note that the auxiliary verb will come before the main verb, always comes before the main verb. Some examples of auxiliary verbs are like is, was, are, were. So as we look at the sentences, you're going to note that we are now introducing them. And we are going to use the same sentences that we used in the active voice, but now we are going to convert them to the passive voice. We are going back to that past sentence that we had. Remember, the banana was eaten by Kamau. So now this sentence is in the passive voice. So remember how we have identified the subject, the verb, and the object? That is exactly what you're going to do. So the object is what has been affected by the action. In this sentence, it is the banana. What is the action? Was eaten. And what is the subject? Kamau. Now, the banana was eaten by Kamau. You can see we have introduced our auxiliary was, and then we have still maintained the main verb, but in its past participle form, eaten. So let us have a look at a few more examples for further understanding. So we are going to look at a few examples, and these sentences are in both the active voice and then they have now been converted to the passive voice. The first one is Eric kicked the ball. We are still using the same examples. Eric kicked the ball. When we now convert this sentence to the passive voice, it becomes the ball was kicked by Eric. Our object is the ball. Our action is was kicked. And then our subject, Eric. You can see we have the auxiliary was, because we can't say the ball kicked by Eric. That is not grammatically correct. So we introduce the auxiliary for our sentence to make grammatical sense. Mary cooked breakfast. That sentence is in the active voice. When we convert it to the passive voice, it becomes breakfast was cooked by Mary. Our object, breakfast. Our action was cooked, which is an auxiliary verb and the main verb. And then the subject, Mary. And then Wanjiro spotted a lion. That is in the active voice. When we convert it, it becomes a lion was spotted by Wanjiro. And lastly, the dog ate the meat. When you convert it, the meat was eaten by the dog. So that's it for the active voice and the passive voice. I hope you have understood As I said, this is something that was taught in Form 1, so this was more of a recap. For further practice, you can have a look at the quiz and attempt to do it. You are required to convert the following sentences into the active voice. So the ones that we have looked at were in the active voice, then we converted them to passive, but these ones are in passive, so you're going to convert them to active voice. For example, the last one, dishes have been washed by Mary. Dishes have been washed by Mary. When you convert it, we're going to start with the subject. Mary has washed the dishes. So you can have a look at the rest and attempt to do them. Thank you for tuning in, and see you in the next session.